Hey guys, I'm in Beverly Hills with the famous Dr. Sam Saleh, and I call you famous because everyone I know comes to you. I'm not talking about celebrities, although they have their own category with you, but everyone I know comes to you. And you stood out to me on social media because you do such an amazing job with your work and the way you express yourself on social media. And we'll get into those details later, but let's get a tour of your office.
Sure.
And you could tell us a little bit about when you started this practice.
Of course, yeah, well, welcome. This is obviously the lounge that you walk into. I actually started in 2003. So I was in my 20s. Yeah, I'd just come out of London. I did a little bit of work here, and then an opportunity arose for me to take this place. I kind of fell in love with it. And then, you know, when you're in your 20s, you don't really think too much about the future ahead of you. And I just had enough belief in myself that I knew I was going to make it. And my whole premise with the design of the office is that I always felt like what I did, aesthetic dentistry, even back then, I felt like it's something that you don't necessarily need to have veneers. You don't necessarily need to have a nice smile. It's one of those things that you elect to do. Mm-hmm. And therefore, if you're doing it, I realized that, you know, I'm competing, you know, with the jewelry, the watches, with all the other luxury items that they could be purchasing. And so I felt like when you come into this environment, you need to feel like you are going to be treated well. You need to feel that, you know, there's an element of hospitality. You're going to be catered to. You're going to be looked after. So for me, it's really, really important right when you walk into the office, how you feel, because it's with that feeling and that intention is how you're going to make your decision, how you want to proceed. We're not, you know, it's not like a factory. There's not lots of people in, you know, in the lounge at any one time.
I realized, like, the second I walked in, first of all, the smell of this office. It doesn't smell like a dentist's office, and also it doesn't look like one. It's very aesthetically pleasing, and I think that's one of the things that sets you apart, even though it's just an atmosphere, but an atmosphere that was such a good thought process and comparison that you just mentioned about jewelry and the finer things in life, because ultimately it's not a necessity. It is something that we would love to have should our means allow it. So I love that you treat your clients or patients.
Well, I say patients because I'm always a doctor at the end of the day.
I'm like, I don't know if they need the help, but okay.
Yeah, so they are patients, but when they come in, we just, you know, we're setting the tone, you know, we're giving them an example of not just what their aesthetic is going to look like, but how they're going to be treated along the way. So, you know, for me and my entire team, it's really important that everybody is a reflection of how I want, you know, my patients to be treated.
And I have to say, like, when I first talked to your receptionist, I've called a few times, they're all like beyond amazing and super kind, and you can hear the smile behind the phone, and it really makes a difference. So
it truly does.
You have really touched base on every aspect of the business and the office. So congrats. This is a beautiful place. By the way, I walked in, I was like, this office space, like the lighting, he knows what he's doing, but I want you to show us.
Yeah, of course. So once obviously you've checked in and you've been greeted, and you've been looked after and asked what you want to drink. Again, these are all touches that I think are very important. Then one of our back staff would come in and greet the patient and then bring them through. So this is what we call the suite. So this is where patients will initially come through.
And I realize you have two waiting areas. And I love, one thing that I noticed is you have a glass door. You have a little lounge area. It's not so office-like.
Yeah. So again, that was all purposeful. Usually these decisions are not decisions that are made in isolation. So, you know, there's a spouse involved, there might be parents, there might be friends. And so we make sure that we're accommodating for those people as well. So they're not kind of sitting outside and unaware of what's going on. So we really specialize in the face. So I'm looking at facial aesthetics. In my opinion, it's relatively easy to create straight white teeth on a benchmark, but that doesn't always work in every individual's face, right? So if you're creating something that hasn't been designed for the face, the typical result is going to be where people will say, oh, where did you get your teeth done? Or, you know, I like your veneers. Like, to me, these are all words that we want to run away from because we want the results to be, oh my God, you look so beautiful. You know, what have you done? Oh my God, you know, and that to me says that the work is undetectable. However, it's done what it needed to do, which is enhance the face. So we spend a lot of time, every time a new patient comes to the office, we do a lot of photos, we do a lot of videos. That I'm scanning the inside of the mouth. That tells me about the bite, which is a huge part of what we do, because Aesthetics is a part, but then the functionality has to be there as well. Then we do x-rays, which tells us what's going on in the substructure of the mouth. And then I'm doing a fully comprehensive examination to see everything that's going on within the face and the mouth. And then that becomes the foundation from which we do the designing of the teeth.
Wow, it's really like artwork.
It is. But there's obviously a strong scientific part to it as well, which is what intrigues me. But yeah, it's a very creative process.
Yeah, beautiful. And also I noticed when I walked in, he has an entire photo shoot, podcast, interview setup thing there. And I was like, wow, this is beautiful. Yeah. And this is, again, one of the reasons why I decided, okay, I need to interview Dr. Sam Saleh, because not only do you do amazing work, but you really understand the business of social media and educating viewers, showing what it is that you do. And, you know, I used to do makeup and I used to teach makeup and work with a lot of clients, thousands of them. And I would always tell them, like, look, you can be as amazing as you want in what you do. And we talked about this earlier. We kind of like create our businesses in parallel, even though they're in different industries. I would tell them, you can be amazing, but like if no one knows about you, how are you going to gain your clientele? And I think that part is what you really understood or understand. And I don't know if that came along the way, or, you know, we can kind of talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, what social media did is that I think any doctor in aesthetics or any doctor, it can be quite an isolating profession, because if you take out the social media element of it, ultimately you're spending, you know, your whole life in a room with your team, and that's, you know, and that can be kind of isolating. So when I first got introduced to it, and it was obviously, you know, I was watching friends on it, I was like, oh my God, this could be such a good tie-in, because now this can become a platform where you share what you do, you share your experiences, you share your aesthetic outcomes, and now you no longer feel like your world comprises, you know, of a little room.
I love
now
that.
You literally have the whole world's eyes on you. And as you know, that's good and bad, because
of course
some people can be mean.
Of course.
And it's okay. I think
it comes with the territory.
You grow thick skin.
Yeah.
But the beauty of it is you can literally make connections with people all around the world.
Yeah.
And I went from having my clients, you know, my patients mainly coming from, you know, where I was working locally, whether it was in London or here, until, you know, once we went kind of viral with some of our videos on social media, we literally had people traveling in. And until today, I would say about good 60% of my patients are traveling to come and see me, whether it's here or in London. So it makes it a lot more interesting, a lot more fun.
Yeah, because I mean, dentists having over 600,000 followers on Instagram is like
it's pretty insane.
Unheard of. Yeah, like it's amazing, and
yeah.
It can be, you know, like I said, you can be doing amazing things, but having people come from all over the world to come to you, that's such a big compliment.
It is.
And it doesn't say that it stops at social media, because you and I both know that you can make your social media as amazing as it is, but it doesn't translate into clients.
No.
And when you do get the client, you have to make sure you keep them happy, because word of mouth is, I mean, especially social media, like you said, it's scary. Like you mess up, everybody will know. Everybody will know.
So a key feature of our office is that we actually have our in-house lab. That means that all the ceramics or all the porcelain work, whether it's a veneer, a crown, or an inlay, it's all made in-house. And to me, that's the secret sauce in order to be able to provide the level of quality that we do. So you want to come and see?
Yeah, let's check it out.
You know, you can work with the best dentist in the world who has that vision, who has the aesthetic, who knows exactly what he wants. But if you don't team up with the ceramics who is actually going to craft the porcelain, then you're only halfway there. So you really have to marry the two at a high level. And so by having the laboratory in the office, from the moment the patient leaves in their temporaries, I'm following the case diligently with all the team members over here to ensure that it's meeting the aesthetic and functional level that I want, so that when the patient comes back, there's no surprises and it just makes everything go smooth.
And that's where the OCD kicks in.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. So if you remember how I was telling you that we don't design on a model, we design into the face. So we're in my office, we basically have an interface of what the latest technology is on a digital platform, and then we marry that in with, you know, artisans which work with their hands. So we get the best of both worlds, where we use this software in which we can actually place and angulate the teeth in accordance to the features of the face. And then once that's been designed in a digital platform, then by hand is where all the final porcelain is finished. So we kind of marry the two worlds together.
Wow.
All crafted by hand. The lab has the most beautiful view within the office because I wanted them to be inspired every day and I wanted them to have a beautiful environment.
What a boss. Take us back to your history of career. Did you always know you wanted to be a dentist?
No, actually, I didn't want to be a dentist. I wanted to be a lawyer.
Wow.
So
I could see that.
Really?
Yeah,
ever since I was a child, I was like always like kind of argumentative. Was really intrigued in terms of being able to talk my way out of things or talk my way into things. And so I thought law would be like, you know, the natural way to be able to do that as a profession. And so the nice thing was that in London, you had to do work experience before you chose your subjects because it's very dependent on what subject you take as which school you'll get into and things like that. So I did work experience. I think I was probably around 14. And I went to a law firm and
that young.
Yeah. And I absolutely hated it. I was like, oh my God, you know, there's always somebody who's going to be hated here. And I just, thank God I knew myself well enough that I knew that I wouldn't be able to deal with that. And I just didn't like that energy. And so I came out of it and I was telling my parents, I'm not going to be a lawyer. And I'm like, okay, well, you have plenty of time. And so, but you had to like keep doing it until you kind of had a field of which field you were going to go into so you could take your subject. So one day I was going through the yellow pages. Did you guys have the yellow pages yet? Yeah, so I was flicking through the yellow pages.
Today's kids will never know.
They'll never know, right? Now it's Google.
Yeah.
So I was going through the yellow pages and I came across an ad where there was a guy hanging off of a wall from his teeth and it just caught my eye and it happened to be a dentist. So I was like, oh, let me try this. So I gave him a call, the nicest, you know, office, like kind of what you were saying. So the girl, she was like, yeah, let me put you through to him. I spoke to she put me on the line with the dentist, like literally within 5 minutes of calling. And he was so nice, so kind, so accommodating. He was like, sure you can come and see. And he had a beautiful office and he was dealing with, you know, a lot of the upper echelon of, you know, English society, a lot of aristocrats and things like that, which I thought was intriguing. And it was kind of like a family setup. So everyone was really kind of very intimately kind of connected with one another. And he had like the business aspect of things. And I felt like, you know, there was just enough of the science and he wasn't doing a lot of aesthetics, but I could see there was a creativity to him and it just instantly clicked. And I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do.
Wow, you were so smart at 14. People are like 40 and they don't know what they want to do with their lives. But it's so important that you dabbled into different things.
But we were talking about mentors, right? And we were talking about role models. So had I not met Norman Mills, I wouldn't be sitting here with you today.
Wow.
So I think that's why it's really, really special to be able to have that role, to be able to kind of be a mentor to someone. So today when people reach out and they're like, oh, I chose to be a dentist because of you, like, I really know how that feels. And it makes me so happy because it's kind of like payback and full cycle. So that's where it all started. And then, yeah, I think the aesthetics element of it started to kick in about year 4 or 5.
And you were still in London at this time?
Yeah, I was at King's College. And I remember, you know, when we would have to do exams, most of the students would pick like the easiest case because if you just have one thing to do, then you'll do it really well and then your chances of failure are going to be lower. And then, but already I was intrigued and I was already like, well, if I could do all 10 of those teeth, then maybe I could do this and this. So I would take on complicated cases and my friends would all be like, you're an idiot, you're going to fail because you take on too much. And I almost did sometimes because it wasn't the smart thing to do. It wasn't the strategic thing to do in an exam, but it was just, that's what I liked. And so, yeah, I would say that was really my passion early on. And then when I came out, I worked like every experience that I could find when I was in London. And then I had the opportunity to take the exams at the time, which would give me the qualification here in the States without having to go to school here, which was really nice. And so when I completed that exam, which was kind of a difficult exam, I think it was only like 6% of people who took it were able to pass. Everyone was going crazy.
So all those challenging tests you did paid off.
So I did that, and I was fortunate enough. And then I just decided I'm going to come to LA. I'll give it a year. I'll probably go back. And a year turned into 2, and then 3, and then I think once I was here, I just became a scenario where I felt like if I did go back to London, it would be like admitting to failure, like I didn't, or that I didn't succeed. So I kind of like plowed through, and it was challenging. It was difficult. You know, when you come here, it's
you don't know
a
anybody
relatively
really.
foreign place. Yeah, it was a lot of the laws and a lot of the way things were done were new to me. It was different, very different from England, which I liked at the time. But then after a while, the novelty wore off, and I kind of got a bit homesick. And then, yeah, and then.
Were you working under someone, or?
So initially, when I came to the States, I was working as an associate. And you see, when you're living in England, it's LA, and specifically Beverly Hills, is sold to you as like that's where the best is for you know, all the plastic surgeons, all the aesthetic doctors. And so I would come and I would go to a lot of these offices that were doing aesthetics at the time. This is like 20 years ago. And I was like really not impressed, right? I was going into these offices like small, kind of dark, smelled like dental office, looked like dental office, dentists looked like that. Like it all just kind of, I was like, why are they making such a big deal about it? And it was at that time where I felt like, okay, there's an opportunity here. Like I feel like, you know, people want this, you know, they're clearly in LA, you know, the aesthetics has always been important. It's fueled by, you know, Hollywood and the movie industry and all the people who come and live here. And I just wanted to do it my way. And of course, at the time I was super young, I was in my 20s, and everyone said, you can't do it, you're going to fail, don't be silly. But I just believed in myself, and I just didn't listen to the noise. And I told myself I'm going to do it, and I would have to give myself pep talks, because nobody, like literally even my own family, were like, you can't do this. I remember I came into this suite with my dad. He literally walked through the front door, and then he turned around and he left. I was like, you're not doing this. He was like, don't be stupid. You cannot do this. Because
they're afraid for you. They don't want you to fail, but also it's like there's something in you and you know it.
Right. And I'm the kind of person that when he did that, I was like, I'm definitely going to do it.
Yeah, right? I'm going to prove to you.
Yeah. And it took a long time, because, you know, back then we didn't have social media.
Too.
Yeah, it was a huge risk, because this was a significant rent. It was a significant build out at the time. I was super young. I was, you know, working on money that I had made while I was in London. So I was like, it wasn't that much. I literally, you know, everything was a loan. Like, probably my underwear was probably on a credit card, everything.
Well, it's important for people to know that, because sometimes they think, oh, you know, he was already a dentist, he probably, you know, had the funds too, but
absolutely
you know,
not. It was
they don't know
literally, there was times where I was like, you know, what if I just had 4 lunches instead of 5? So it was like those kind of decisions that I had to make, because I put everything into this place. And it was, you know, and what happens when you first start is that you have this imagination that, you know, it's all just going to fall into place. Like, you know, the saying, they say, build it and they will come. But it doesn't happen right away. And so there were nights where I would go home and, you know, I would feel discouraged and I would feel slightly defeated. But I never let it show. I would always come to work positive. I always showed the team that, you know, it's going to work. It's, you know, you know, we just have to follow, you know, my way of getting to where it was. And sure enough, eventually it did. We started, you know, I did a couple of shows. I was in the Tyra Banks show at the time. She was a patient of mine.
Oh, wow.
So sweet, such a lovely lady. And then she took me on. And so that was, in those times, that was the closest thing to social media, where if you go onto television, again, now you're broadcast and now your work becomes something that you're able to connect with a lot of people. And I think that was one of the first kind of major breakthroughs that I had. And then from there, it just kind of grew and grew from
ripple effect.
From that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We talked a lot about, you know, when we spoke over the phone, about you're big on manifesting and energy, and you touched base on that a little bit now.
I messaged you 10 years ago.
Yes.
Right? So
what a full circle moment.
I manifested you to be sitting here in my office today.
That is so crazy. Beyond, first of all, I'm beyond flattered, okay? But I went to send you a message like just a few weeks ago. And then I saw you sent me a message and I'm like, when was this? I've never seen it. And I look it up and it's 2015.
Insane, right?
10 years ago. You sent me a message. I cannot believe I never saw it, but now I'm like, down. But full circle moment.
Yeah, 100%. But I'm a big believer in that. And again, I think that's another kind of, you know, we talk about success and you talk about, like, you know, the how-tos and all the rest of it. there are some people who feel like their whole life needs to be like written out in a book, and this, you do this and then you do that, and it's all staged,
the plan.
But I think it's really, really hard to live that life, and quite frankly I think that would be a boring life, because if you're following steps and you know where the outcome is going to be, then it's kind of like, what's the point? But I do feel that you sense things, and if you tap into what we were talking about earlier in terms of energies, and being able to manifest, and visualizing things, and having someone that you can look up to, because it's so much more than that. I think some people can look at it from kind of a negative perspective, because some people might look at somebody who's successful and they might show like envy or jealousy, which I think is so incorrect, because if you look at somebody who's successful with admiration, then that's actually a way of manifesting it, because you're connecting that with something that's positive, and if you make it positive, then you can aspire to it. But if you look at it, people who like, they're sometimes envious, and then they kind of say what you said, oh, well, probably his dad gave it to him or whatever, then they don't make it so positive, and then it's harder to aspire to it.
So sometimes people will need to know, they want to know that it was not the way you said, because then it'll make me feel better about why I'm not making it.
Right. But they're creating their own roadblock. Whereas if you believe in the story and you're happy for the person and you admire the process, then the chances are you'll follow in their footsteps, and you may well surpass
aspiring them. At that point.
Exactly. So I think that I'm a big believer in that, always have been.
At what point was it the Tyra Banks? Like, was that the pivotal moment for your career?
I think I've always had goals for where I wanted to be professionally as well as personally. And so, I think you have pivotal moments to get you to certain levels, but then, you're always trying to push the boundaries. I mean, for some reason, I always am. So for then, I think, yes, it certainly was very pivotal. But I would say, in my career, there's been a lot of pivotal moments.
And, sometimes I'll bring up the celebrities, not because the celebrities are the end all be all, but it really does make an impact on your career once you have like an A-list celebrity or even B-list celebrity in any industry that you're in, like even it could be food, the second, I know that one of the people that I interviewed was Dave's Hot Chicken. And, once Drake got on board, that was it. Like it created this like ripple effect for them, and all these other people started investing in their company. But it does, for the viewers, it makes a difference. Like, hey, if this celebrity who knows everyone, who has access to the best, is choosing this dentist, this doctor, then he must be good, and I want to go to him. Was that because of someone who came to you, or you guys did some videos?
So social media, again, like I said, I think I took a handle of it relatively earlier on. I remember my peers and a lot of doctors who were working in the area at the time when it was first becoming a big thing. I would say around 2000, was it 2015 or was it 2012? And so at that time, it was almost taboo within the medical and dental industries, because we go to school hearing about HIPAA and patient privacy, and especially coming from England. I mean, it was borderline like, sacrilegious if you did something like that, if you spoke about your patient or anything like that, because they're so big on it. So I think a lot of doctors kind of deferred away from it. Whereas again, for me, I just didn't see it that way. I felt like, I'm doing something that's aesthetic, it's visual, it's a way to, demonstrate what I'm doing. We always obviously got consent from the patients. We didn't do anything non-consensually. And it didn't even occur to me that there was anything negative about it. So, and there was, some doctors at the time. So again, you aspire, and if you look at someone and you admire them instead of criticizing them, I just took the concept and I said, oh, this would work really well for dentistry as well. And yes, I think, having the social media then, and there wasn't so much of this type of content. So it was intriguing. So I would do simple things, like I would just, I would showcase the fact that I do no prep veneers, because that's something that most people think veneers, they're shaving your teeth down to pegs, and it had a negative connotation. So I just showed a video, like a simple one. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't like we didn't have a whole filming team or anything. I was literally one of my assistants and me just putting it on the tooth. And yeah, it went viral. And those kind of things were just very, very interesting at the time.
The fact that you've taken dentistry and created that following and that fan base and people, I think at this point in your social media presence is not even just about your work anymore. Like they love you, right? Like they love your presence, and you don't make it just about dentistry. It's like education, information. Like even if someone's not interested in doing veneers, they're like, okay, like he has so much information, like, and he has such a nice presence about him that I kind of want to like follow along. And because it's not common for someone to follow a dentist, right? Like, you know, beauty industry, it was huge. Like the beauty industry, I mean, at the time in the beginning, every post was going viral because beauty is so visual that like just the beauty industry kind of took over social media for a while.
Yeah, it did.
And so dentistry was not very common, like you said, and you just were able to take that and create something like this. So that's why I decided to do this with you, because you really stand out, you know, and everyone I know who has come to you has only like the greatest things to say about you.
That's really sweet. I think it's also nice to be able to, you know, I think we were talking about it earlier. I think the authenticity is so important to me. And I don't think that, you know, to be successful, you need to tell everyone that you're the best, because I'm not. I mean, I'm sure there's people better than me. And I think I'm always happy to show my vulnerabilities. And if there are shortcomings, I am, you know, I acknowledge it. And then obviously, you know, go about seeing how it happened and where it could be rectified. So I think showing that side of you and showing your humanity and who you are makes a big difference as well, because at the end of the day, you know, we're all human.
Right. That's beautifully put. What has been the most challenging thing in the last 20 years?
I have a life coach that I've been working with since the beginning, actually. So she knows me really, really well.
Life coaches have always intrigued me. How do you like that?
It's so nice. It's so nice. It's kind of like, I don't know, back then it was kind of like most of us have our relationship with our ChatGPT. So I've had this now, you know, going on for a long time, where it's somebody who I feel is wise, and she's able to talk to me in a way where I'm able to receive it. I'm sure there's things that she's told me that, you know, if my mother told me, I'd be like, you know, dismissive of it. But there's just a way that she's able to communicate to me that sits well with me. And I think that's why our relationship has lasted as long as it has. And so, you know, she's obviously seen a lot of what's gone on in my life, both personally and professionally. And we were talking, and the other day, and we were saying that, you know, some of the goals that I set for myself like 10 years ago, I have today far surpassed them, right? But can I today sit here and tell you that, you know, I have like 10x happier than I was 10 years ago when I hadn't met those goals? No, because I think no matter where you are in life, you know, you're always kind of striving for the next, and you're always striving to, you know, to reach whatever else you feel like you want to achieve in your life. So,
well, that can be a good thing and a bad thing, right?
Can, yeah,
because
it can.
Like you want to be content and happy with where you are,
100%.
But you don't want to limit yourself to where you are either. You're just always striving for more, and that doesn't mean more money, more houses, more cars, but more out of life, more gratification in the work that you do.
Right.
So it's a hard balance. It's hard finding that balance of finding joy and happiness.
It is. And that's why sometimes it's nice to have somebody like that, because they're like, remember when you used to X?
To remind you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, yes. And then you take that moment, I'm sure you've had it, where you can go from like hot to like cold, and you'll be like, oh my God, thank you, God. Actually, so sorry. I didn't mean to be ungrateful.
Yeah. Things worked out. It's just a shift in the mindset too.
Yeah, and it is. Right? And it's all that. And I think that's the beauty of it as well. And I've come to peace with the fact that I like to be ambitious, but I'm trying to do it in a non-painful way. So there are things that I'm just burning to do. And whereas 10 years ago, I would upset myself that I wasn't quite there. Now I just see it as a journey, and I'm like, okay, well, this is just part of the journey. I'm going to enjoy the journey. I'm going to be present. And then when it comes, it's going to come.
Right. And speaking of things that you want to do, is there anything you want to share about things to come? What are...
Yeah, I mean, for me,
steps,
I think
goals?
that within the role of what I do, I'm super happy. I've just been blessed to have I have the most amazing team, which I absolutely couldn't do this without, and I'm so blessed to have them.
Makes such a difference.
Oh,
the
huge
team
difference.
is so important.
It's like, you know, it's literally a family, and
you spend more time with them than you do with your family anyway.
You really do. And I always tell people who are setting up, you know, businesses, you know, this is a form of family. So treat them well. You know, I think a lot of people look at, you know, the work family as like something, you know, to scrutinize and hold back on and maybe hide from and all the rest of it. But this is, you know, you should be treating them like family, and then
they will treat your business like family.
Yes, and it's so much better that way. So in that respect, I've been, you know, really blessed. And for me, next steps is to kind of expand in the format of products. So I'm really interested in oral care, and I'm really interested.
I love that. Yeah. See, I love when people just keep getting creative and keep doing more.
Yeah.
And then it just, truthfully, you're one person.
Yeah.
Right. I know you have associates, but I know people who want you. But like, you're one person. You can only take on so many patients in a day. And to me, I felt there was a time in my life where I just felt burnout.
Right.
And then like, that's when I started thinking about creating products. And I wanted to be part of the creative process, but to physically, I mean, I'm only 41, but I did feel it. I did. And it's physical labor. And I'm sure yours is too, to be hunched over like that.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, mine was the same way. My like, you know, I have like very minor arthritis on my neck in my 30s, you know, I'm like, this is kind of crazy. You know, I realized physically I was having a hard time. And maybe, you know, when you're younger, you're not really taking care of yourself the way you should.
Right.
Your weekly massages or a chiropractor or health or eating right, you know, and it just, and I felt burnt out. And I was like, okay, I can't do the hours that I do every single day for too long of a time, right? I can't do, you can, but doing that in your 60s later, you know, or 50s, 60s, it's hard on you.
It is.
So it's great that you think outside of the box. And, you know, this is the building stage. You know, it's not that you want to quit now, but it's like the building stage of what you're creating for your future, longevity.
Yeah, and of course, and I think the two marry together so well because the products that I'm interested in developing have all come from my experience and my day-to-day with my patients. So I'll always have that connection because that's the lifeline of how, you know,
and people want a piece of like what you've, like for me, like when I've created my products, they're like, I can't come to you all the time, right? Like I've had my service, I don't need it all the time, but I'd love to like take what you've created and maintain what I like that you do. And so beautiful that you said that. And it's so relatable because you're creating things and people trust your product to be able to maintain whatever that you're creating or anybody creating. So do you think that, like, I know you have associates, do you train them?
Yeah, so
what you do?
We have, you know, in my opinion, success, again, as you said earlier, there's only so much you can do with one pair of hands. So it's about, you know, leadership and then being able to
be available,
effectively communicate what your team needs to do, like show them the vision. And I feel like when you have a vision, then you can set up structure. And then once there's structure, then there's steps with everything that we do. And then everything is double and triple checked. So having a team, in my opinion, ensures, you know, more rigorous checking of everything that's being done, better quality control, and more sustainable results.
I love that. How do you decide? I mean, I'm sure everybody wants to come to you and be like, hey, Dr. Sam Saleh, can you teach me how you do it? Do you mentor? How do you find your associates?
So the associates have come to us. And again, I think you look for characteristics that you can't necessarily train in someone. So, you know, I could teach you, you know, how to put the burr on, and I can teach you how much of the tooth structure to remove, but I can't teach you to be compassionate to a patient. I can't teach you to be considerate, you know, of your assistant and who else works with you. I can't teach you, you know, certain morals and ethics in terms of what you should and you shouldn't do for the patient's best interest. So those are the type of things that I look for. And then everything else gets trained. And anybody who knows me knows that my OCD is just on another level. So nothing gets past me, and I'm on top of everything.
You have to be.
You have to
be, especially with the level you're at.
Even when I was a child, I would always notice everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what do your parents think about you now?
Oh, they're quite pleased.
Yeah. You're like, I showed you. Do you think that, you know, the dentistry, the industry, where are the challenges in doing something like this for someone who's watching, or not even dentistry, right? You have a career and you don't know how to take it to the next level based on your experience and the steps you've taken. You took risks based on like confidence and manifesting and energy and like knowing obviously your skill very well. That's where the confidence comes in. If someone wants to take those steps just like you did, what are your words of advice for them?
So I think you mentioned a lot of the key ingredients, but I think passion is the biggest one. So you truly have to be passionate about what it is that you're doing, because through the passion will then come the dedication and the time and the effort to become an expert at what you do. And I feel that, with a lot of what we do, it is a sense of energy, right? So if you see a doctor who's passionate about what they're doing and you can feel it in them, you almost know that your results are going to be good. And so that's something you have to have within you. And, as a father, sometimes my kids say, okay, what should I do? And, what do you want me to do? And all that. And I always say, no, this has to be something that comes from you. I can be here to support you. I can be here to guide you. I can be here to critique you if you want to, but the passion has to come from within. So I think that's your biggest hurdle, to find that and to really grasp and handle what your passion is. And then that itself will propel you to get, to the level of success that you desire.
Beautiful. You are so well spoken.
Thank you.
You're so articulate. You express yourself so beautifully.
Thank you.
And it's so relatable.
Thank you.
And I feel inspired. So just want to say congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All of this. I think you are the epitome of taking something that is not per se like what the young generation wants to see on social media, but you've created that. And I think what's happened with social media is that social media is a great tool, right? I feel like the younger generation is like just pushing for social media success versus like careers, right? Like I feel like careers are on the back burner because everyone's a blogger and doing all these things, and that's great. But I think you can take a career if you're passionate about it and incorporate all of that into it. I saw the video where you were in New York and you were in London, and it was so nice, like following that journey. I'm like, I love that he did that.
Thank you.
On your like business, like dentistry page. Like it's beautifully combined. And those of you who are listening, you can be in any industry. And people ask me all the time, like, I have a tutoring service. How do I put myself out there? It like something that's not very visually like makeup. That's the history I have. Or food, right? Like you love watching like those cooking videos, but to take something that's not, something that people will sit there and watch for hours and put a creative angle to it. And look what he did. So we're very proud of you.
Thank you so much.
It's such an honor to meet you.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It's such a pleasure.
Thank you.
This was long overdue, apparently.
Yes.
Congrats on all the success.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.